Okay, today is just before Hurricane Fiona makes landfall. It's Friday. Friday morning. We have 4 questions here for our warm up. So if you're at home missing school today, good news is you can still try the warm up. We have 4 questions here, all related to Chapter 2 on rational numbers. Our first question says, which is smaller? Don't use a calculator, and it gives us two fractions, negative 3/20ths and negative 7/50ths. So without a calculator, you might think that this is going to be very difficult to do. But really, what we want to do is we want to create equivalency between two fractions. So 3/20ths, we want to create an equivalent fraction. And with 7/50ths, we want to create equivalent, share common denominators. So we know that 100 is a common denominator that both 20 and 50, or a multiple that both 20 and 50 share. So if I multiply this by 5 and multiply this by 5, I get 15/100ths. So it's negative 15/100ths. Now I can put the sign in one of three places. I can put it here, that's negative 15/100ths. I can put it up here, that's negative 15/100ths. Or I can put it there. It doesn't matter where I put this symbol. It's all going to be negative 15/100ths. So I'm just going to put it in the numerator. That's usually where I put it anyway. And over here, if I multiply by 2 and multiply by 2, I get negative 14/100ths. So those are our two equivalent fractions. And since when we're dealing with negative numbers, the closer it is to 0, the larger it is, and the smaller, farther away from 0, the smaller it is, this one is our smaller number. So the first question is negative 15/100ths is our smaller fraction. Here, the second question says identify a fraction between these two numbers. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, this is really tough because I can't think of a decimal that even fits between there. So what we want to do is we want to put some insignificant zeros on our number. So decimal 1 is 1/10 and no hundredths and no thousandths. We can write it like that. And for this one, I can write it like this. I'm just adding insignificant zeros. And once we write that, we can say, oh, I get it. Yeah. Okay, so the one in between there would be negative 0.105 would be right in the middle. But you could do negative 101, 102, 103, all the way up to 109. And you can go beyond that. You can start adding some significant zeros after that, or significant digits after that. But this is our decimal if it's between there. And if I then reconstitute it back to fraction form, that's 105 thousandths. I'll guarantee you that there are some people here that realize that, you know what, I don't feel comfortable leaving it like that. I'm going to reduce it to lowest terms. So if you divide by that, you get 21, negative 21 over 200 as a lowest term fraction. And that would just show you that you got a different level to your game if you reduced it to lowest terms. Question 3 says identify a decimal between these two. So right off the bat, I could either not use a calculator or use a calculator. I'm pretty confident in my math game. I know what that is as a decimal, negative 3/4. If you didn't know that, well, you just got to work a little bit harder. But that's the easiest one here. Now, negative 38/50ths, you know, you might not know your equivalent fraction. So 38 divided by 50 will change that to a decimal. You get 0.76. So as a negative 0.76 is as a decimal. Identify a decimal between there. So now we have our two decimals. We're going to put a 0 on each of these, an insignificant 0. And the one that would be in between there would be negative 0.755, which is our middle digit, our middle decimal, right between those two fractions. But you could also go with 0.751, 752, 753, anything of those. And our last question, without using a calculator, do these two questions. I'm going to bring this over here. Okay. So when we're adding those two together, what we're really asking is what do we have more of, or what is the difference between what I have more of and what I have less of? I have more positives, but I want to figure out how many more positives I have. So really, to answer this addition, I'm going to use subtraction. I'm finding the difference between what I have more of and what I have less of. Borrow from the 4 to make it 3. That's 12 tenths. Take away 8 tenths is 4 tenths. And 3 take away 2 is, or 3 take away 1 is 2. So therefore, I have 2.4 more positives than negatives, and my answer is positive 2.4. In the next one, if we estimate, our estimation would be negative 2 times negative 1, which is going to be a positive 2 estimation. Once I have my estimation, I can drop my decimals, drop my negative signs, and just multiply it out like this. Using that algorithm, I get 10, I get 3, I get 5, I get 1, I get 0, I get 8, I get 1. And based on my estimation of positive 2, The only place I could put this decimal that makes sense to be approximating positive 2, if I can grab it, is right there. So therefore your answer is positive 1.8.